Hello queens, angels, and goddesses. Welcome back to my channel. Warning: this contains boy love, and if you don't like it then please get off my channel. Water pistol. Grinning face with cowboy hat. It all began on that one day, the day a certain libero unexpectedly stopped Kageyama's serve. As if it was nothing, Kageyama had felt a whole ton of different emotions staring at the boy from the other side of the net. Shock, amazement. Until the boy spoke, then Kageyama could have sworn he felt his heart skip a beat. However, of course Kageyama shook the feeling off, telling himself it was just the heat of the moment and such. Nishinoya Yu, that was his name. He was a year older than Kageyama, and pretty short, even shorter than Hinata, but at the same time he could be pretty feisty, and had a out there type personality, the exact opposite of the raven-haired setter. On a day-to-day basis the two boys didn't interact much. Sure, now and then they'd compliment each other during the hype of practicing, or Nishinoya giving Kageyama a pat on the back or thumbs up from doing a good job, but pretty much everyone did that to one another. It was a normal thing in all honesty. However, whenever the others did such things to him, it felt just normal, but with Nishinoya just the slightest touch of arms by accident or even looking at his smiling face, it made Kageyama feel something he couldn't quite understand. At first this feeling he was feeling towards the libero was just something he could shove off and ignore, but then it started getting worse to the point where just looking at Nishinoya made him feel flustered. Kageyama Tobio, being the total utter dork he is, finally decided to try to find out what was going on with him deep down. He knew why he was being like this and why he was feeling these things, but he didn't want to believe it, not at all. One day after practice, Suga and Kageyama were put on clean-up lock-up duty. It was the perfect time for Kageyama to ask about what his feelings meant. After some time, the two boys finished their jobs, and made their way outside together, locking the gym. "Well, I'll see you tomorrow at practice then, Kageyama." Wait. Kageyama blurted out louder than he meant to, making Suga's eyes widened a bit. "You need to ask. Otherwise this won't end," the boy thought to himself, as the silence was beginning to make Suga worry. "What's wrong, Kageyama?" Kageyama kept his head lowered a bit, before beginning to speak. "There's something I need to ask you, but you need to promise to not tell anyone," the boy muttered. "Of course. What is it, Kageyama? You can tell me anything." Kageyama exhaled lightly, keeping his face low before continuing, while Suga stared at him with a worried expression. For a while now, whenever I talk, or even look at a specific person, I feel something I've never felt towards anyone else in my life. I don't know what it means, but it's not stopping, and I don't know what to think of it." After Kageyama had finished what he was saying, he could hear light laughing coming from the boy in front of him. Kageyama shot his head up, looking at Suga, confused, and slightly embarrassed. What's funny? Kageyama, you're so dense," he told him, finishing his chuckling. The raven-haired boy's face went blank, totally puzzled. "Huh? Okay, Kageyama, let me ask you something." He smiled, finishing off his laughter. "Have you possibly had thoughts or urges to touch this person?" In all honesty, Kageyama never had thoughts about Nishinoya in that way, since he always tried to put the image of the boy to the back of his mind, well, up until now at least. Things went silent for a few seconds while Kageyama thought about touching a certain libero in a not so decent way before shaking his head side to side, trying to rid of the heat that had already found its way to his face, making it very red. "Well, considering how red your face is right now, I think it's proof enough." Suga chuckled. What do you mean? Kageyama, you have a crush on someone?" Kageyama just stood there for a moment, dumbfounded, until it sunk in. No. I can't. And no. I can't. I can't like." He stopped himself, realizing he was yelling when Suga was just telling the truth he knew all along but didn't want to believe. "You can't like who?" Don't worry about it," the setter responded in a harsh tone. "I'll see you tomorrow, Suga." And with that, he left Suga standing there without another word. Days passed since the incident between Suga and Kageyama, but even so, Kageyama's mood since that had reverted back to how he was in middle school, the bossy, temperamental king no one liked. Of course everyone had noticed, and it was pissing most the teammates off he was being this way towards everyone, even Hinata, his best friend. However, when it came to Nishinoya, he just straight off ignored him, which of course pissed Nishinoya off more than anything. One thing Nishinoya absolutely hated was being looked down on and being ignored like that. Well, it felt like Kageyama was looking down on him even when he tried to get mad at Kageyama for being a dick. Kageyama didn't even look him in the eye and walked past him. Doing this of course hurt Kageyama deeply. The last thing he wanted was to hurt Nishinoya or anyone, but he couldn't help the way he was acting. If he just straight of ignored Nishinoya, everyone would be worried and it'd hurt Nishinoya even more. Plus everyone would be on his back about it. This was the best solution. However, it wasn't working and Kageyama knew it wasn't, and he soon came to realize the only way he even had a chance to get over how he was feeling without hurting anyone in the process was to stop going to practices for some time. And so from that moment on first he told them he wasn't feeling well, then he kept saying had something urgent at home to attend to. However, after a whole week had passed, and a game was slowly approaching, Hinata finally took desperate measures, and tried to talk Kageyama down. He had tried countless times before, even spamming the other boy with messages, but this time he was determined to get Kageyama to come back. It was around lunchtime. Hinata waited for Kageyama to leave his class before catching him on the way out. "Kageyama, we need to talk," Hinata said, looking at him with a serious expression. Kageyama internally sighed, noticing how serious Hinata was. He wanted to tell Hinata the truth, why he hadn't been coming to practices, why he'd been this way, but this wasn't normal, and knowing his best friend the orange-haired boy would likely say, "Well, at least tell him. Who knows, maybe you'll have a chance." Or worst case scenario, Hinata would be totally weirded out. However, Kageyama already knew there was no way it would happen. "What is it?" the setter muttered back. Hinata grabbed Kageyama's arm, leading him somewhere they could talk privately. "Now tell me. Why have you been ignoring my messages? And why haven't you been coming to practice?" Hinata asked, visibly angry. "It's nothing," Kageyama responded, feeling guilt rush through him. Lying to Hinata hurt more than anything. "You're lying, Kageyama. If there's something wrong, you can tell me. You can trust me, Kageyama. I thought we were partners," he says, looking down, hurt present in his voice. "Not just that. I thought we're best friends." The setter looked down, feeling tears swell up into his eyes. He hated this. He hated it all so much. Why did he have to fall for Nishinoya? Why him? Why couldn't he just not had liked anyone at all? "Hinata, you are my partner and best friend. And it's because you're my best friend. I want to tell you this when I'm sure, so for now." He felt a lump in his throat, gulping it down, trying to hold back his tears. "Just stay out of it." And with that, Kageyama left, leaving Hinata there as tears left his eyes. Hinata wasn't mad anymore, he was just hurt. He understood Kageyama never had friends like this before and that he wasn't telling him for reasons, but it didn't change the hearing the words, "Just stay out of it," from someone you care about a lot. Hurt like hell. Of course, Hinata told the team the previous day that he's get the truth out of Kageyama and bring him back, so when Hinata went to practice later that day in an upset mood, everyone knew it didn't go well. "Hinata, how did it go?" asked Daichi as the others gathered around the sad boy. "Kageyama," he said. Hinata could feel tears swell up in his eyes as he gulped them back. He said that for now, I should just stay out of it. Hearing this and seeing his Kohei so upset like that made Nishinoya enraged. "That's it. He's going too far now." The small libero bursted, obviously angry. "Nishinoya, please calm down. I think I know Sugar started but was then cut off. I'll make Kageyama apologize. Even if I have to force him to." Before Sugar could say another word, as well as the rest of the team, Nishinoya had already sprinted out of the gym. Daichi let out a sigh, holding his hand to his head. "Let's just hope Kageyama makes it out of this in one piece." Sugar was about to tell the others what Kageyama had told him, but he realized it'd only hurt Hinata more if he did. Nishinoya made his way down to the mini-mart where their coach worked. He knew Kageyama would pass by here since the bus he takes is just down the way. When Kageyama finally made his way by, Nishinoya walked out, stopping in front of him, gazing up at the taller boy with anger in his eyes. Kageyama felt his heart stop and then quicken immensely. The last thing he wanted was to be confronted by him, anyone but him. "Nishino, don't you dare try to run from me," Nishinoya began in a strict, almost heart-wrenching tone, making Kageyama internally shudder. Right here, right now, either you tell me what the hell you've been doing, or you cut the crap and come back, and apologize to Hinata. The setter felt chills run down his spine hearing Nishinoya's angered voice yelling at him. Sadness and guilt began surging inside him. He didn't mean to hurt Hinata, he didn't want any of this, but he had no choice. Kageyama gulped, standing there in silence, not saying word with his head down, before beginning to walk past the libero until the other's hand wrapped around his wrist with strong force, causing Kageyama's heart to stop for a moment. He forgot something. Nishinoya wasn't like the others. He wouldn't give up until Kageyama answered him, and Kageyama knew this very well, but it didn't stop him from trying to get out of this situation. I told you not to run away. What the hell is going on with you? Everyone's worried. And there's a game soon. Cut the crap, Kageyama. It's none of your business, leave me alone. Kageyama muttered out in a low, harsh tone, before trying to pull away from Nishinoya's grip, but in response the others only tightened. I'm not going to let you go until you tell me. He practically growled in response. Kageyama began shuddering, now tears filling his eyes. Don't you understand? I can't tell anyone, especially you. He let out before biting his lip. Nishinoya realized this, the slight change in Kageyama's voice and also how his hand was lightly trembling. Kageyama, listen. I didn't mean to be so harsh, it's just, we really need you to come back, we have a game soon, and we're just not complete without you. Nishinoya told him, loosening his grip on the other boy but not letting go. Even if I come back, I'll be how I was like before, and you'll all start to hate me. It's better this way. What happened? Did someone do something to you, Kageyama? If someone did something, I'll beat the crap out of them. Nishinoya asked, anger present in his tone. He wouldn't let anyone hurt his underclassmen and get away with it. This won't stop until I tell him, and maybe if I do tell him, they won't force me to come back, maybe they'll think I'm gross and leave me alone. Somebody did do something to me. Kageyama finally let out. Huh? Who the hell was it? I'll be sure whoever it were. Kageyama let out a gulp, turning to face Nishinoya, while his hand was still around his wrist. It was you did this to me? He cuts the other off, feeling so nervous he could drop dead any minute. Nishinoya just stared into Kageyama's deep blue eyes, feeling guilt and confusion. He never meant to hurt Kageyama, he doesn't even know what he did, but for some reason while he stared into Kageyama's eyes so closely like this, and felt his skin against his own in his hand, Nishinoya's heart began to race. What? What do you mean me? What did I do? Kageyama looked down, feeling his face go warm. Nishinoya secretly didn't want to stop looking into the other's eyes. This was it, the moment where he'd ruin everything, the last time he'd probably even talk to Nishinoya, the moment that would make him quit the volleyball team for good. In other words, it was either go big or go home. Kageyama looked back at Nishinoya finally, as he lifted his hand, slowly placing it on the side of the other's face. Before Nishinoya could even comprehend what was going on, Kageyama's warm lips were pressed against his own. But for some reason, just as Kageyama was about to pull away and leave, Nishinoya grabbed onto Kageyama's shirt, tugging him back, as their lips smashed together once more. Why am I doing this? I shouldn't be. Kageyama. No way. I can't actually. When both of them were finally out of breath, they broke away, panting deeply. Both their faces were visibly red. Why did you? Kageyama started before being cut off. Nishinoya was word jumbled. He couldn't understand this himself, and to make it worse, he wanted more. Come to practice tomorrow, oh okay? Later, Kageyama. And with that, Nishinoya left the boy standing there confused as hell yet happy inside. But on the other hand, Nishinoya was freaking out. When Nishinoya made his way back to the gym, he was still in complete shock from what had happened. And obviously, Nishinoya being Nishinoya, it was evident on his face something was up, especially when he just walked past everyone with a blank expression when they were trying to ask him what happened, before sitting on the bench. Nishinoya. Hey? Nishinoya. After Daichi calling to him a couple times, he finally looked up to him. Huh? Are you talking to me? What happened? Why are you being like this all of a sudden? Suga asked, while the others just watched. Kageyama. Nishinoya started, before feeling his face go warm, and heart start speeding up. What about Kageyama? Hinata added. He. Nishinoya gulped before continuing. He spit it out already. Tsukishima told him, becoming irritated. He kissed me. Everyone's froze in shock for a moment as their eyes widened. What? They all yelled practically in unison. Are you kidding? Did he really? Suga asked as everything began to make sense. Nishinoya just nodded in response. And what did you do? Now Nishinoya's face was super red as he looked down. He pulled away, but then I pulled him back and I kissed him longer. Wait, Nishinoya, you like Kageyama, but what about Kyoko? Tanaka bursted. Tanaka never expected this at all, Kageyama liking Nishinoya and Nishinoya liking him too. I don't know. I don't even know why I did that. None of this makes sense. The libero yelled, not understanding what was going on with him. Okay, everyone calm down. Nishinoya needs to cool his head. In the meanwhile, let's continue practice. Hinata and Tanaka both wanted to talk with Nishinoya more, the others did as well, but Daichi was right, they should give him space for now. When they all went back to the net, Daichi pulled Suga aside. Go talk to him, you and me both know he needs a push. Suga nodded and made his way over to Nishinoya, sitting next to him. A couple weeks ago Kageyama talked to me about something, actually the day after me and him talked about this, he began acting the way he was. Suga began hoping to catch the libera's attention. What? What did he say? Nishinoya asked, looking up over at Suga. Well, actually he was confused about something. He told me that while ago, he started feeling a certain way towards someone, that he had never felt towards anyone else before. So obviously I laughed, mostly because of how embarrassed and serious he was being. I mean, obviously that meant he had a crush on someone. But Kageyama, not being the brightest, probably needed to make sure he understood what he was feeling. So I told him that he liked someone, but the next thing I knew he yelled at me saying that he can't have a crush, and that he can't like, well, he didn't finish what he was saying before stopping himself and walking off, so I wasn't sure who it was exactly. But why? Why didn't he want to like me? Nishinoya responded. I can't say for sure, but imagine being Kageyama, the first person he's ever liked is his teammate, and not just that, but he's a guy, plus, you've always been all over Kyoko with Tanka, and the reason why you came to this school was because the girl's uniform was cute. Liking someone who you're sure is straight, knowing you won't have a chance with them, but you're always around them, and worst. And this is probably also Kageyama's case, not being able to get over them. It makes sense why Kageyama has been like this. Suga finished. Then why did he? He probably thought that after he did that you'd probably hate him, and then you'd tell us and we'd think so too. He probably realized that it was now or never. But now I have a question for you. Why would you kiss him back like that? I don't know, okay? I felt something like, he stopped himself, feeling his heart speed up. What did you feel? Just the way his skin felt in my hand, and his eyes. I never looked in them so close up before. Then it was his voice. I always knew his voice was really nice, but in the moment it just... I don't know. He said, looking down, replaying the scene in his mind. Have you ever felt something different from others towards Kageyama before? Suga asked. Nishinoya thought about it for a bit. Whenever he saw Kageyama try to smile, even if it looked scary to others, it would make him happy. Whenever he heard Kageyama's name from anyone's mouth, it would automatically catch his attention compared to anyone else's. Whenever he saw Kageyama genuinely having a good time or hyped about volleyball, which rarely happened, Nishinoya would feel so happy. And just not too long ago, when Kageyama was being rude to everyone, but ignoring him, in all honesty he was hurt more. They angered him and Kageyama barely spoke, and when they did it would brighten the libera's day. Then Nishinoya thought deeper. He thought about being alone with Kageyama, going out places together, watching movies, playing videos games, and even, well, touching Kageyama, feeling Kageyama's warm skin against his own, Kageyama's lips against his for even longer, being in his arms. That's why. He finally realized. Deep down. I've always wanted this. I've always wanted to be with him, and touch him. That's why I kissed him back. I've always wanted Kageyama. He said quietly, but just loud enough for Suga to hear. I noticed. Suga smiled at him, causing Nishinoya to look at him in shock. Whenever someone even mentioned Kageyama's name, your attention would be straight to them. Suga let out a giggle. I never imagined this would actually happen though. Who knew Kageyama liked you back? Shut up. Nishinoya muttered. Well, what are you going to do now then? Tell him. I guess. He replied, feeling his cheeks go warm. Good. Sugar chimed, taking a book out of his bag with everyone's address and information, handing it to Nishinoya. Here, Kageyama's address is in there, go. He urged the boy. What? Can't I just text him or something? No way, if you're going to confess, you better do it in person. Sugar responded as they both stood. Now go. He smiled, giving Nishinoya a shove. And with that, Nishinoya left the gym once again, making his way to Kageyama's house nervous as hell. Kageyama lied in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking over what happened, while his face kept going hotter and hotter. It all felt like a dream. Nishinoya actually kissed him back. No way it could be real. Maybe he was just caught in the moment. Maybe Nishinoya was just curious how it felt to kiss a guy. Who knows? Either way, Kageyama couldn't stop thinking, and he wouldn't until he got an answer out of the libero. He was also debating on whether or not to go to the practice tomorrow. Nishinoya told him to. Maybe he wants to talk to him about what happened there. Kageyama didn't really have a choice but to go in that case. However, Kageyama's thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the doorbell going off. His parents went home today, so he had no choice but to go see who it was. He got out of bed and walked himself to the door before opening it. At first it seemed like no one was there, until he looked down to see the shorter boy standing in front of him. He practically froze, feeling his stomach twist and turn with nervousness. Nishinoya, what are you doing here? Nishinoya gulped, keeping his gaze low, too nervous to look at Kageyama's face at the moment. I need to talk to you about something. Oh, come in then. He told him, moving aside to let the other enter. As he did. Aren't your parents home? Nishinoya asked after taking his shoes off, following Kageyama to the living room. No, they work until late. The other responded, sitting on the couch while the other sat next to him. Things went quiet for a bit, until Kageyama broke the ice. So, what did you want to tell me? Oh. Right. Well. About earlier, why did you, do that? Kageyama felt his muscles tense as he looked down. Because. For some reason Kageyama couldn't get the words out. You like me, right? Is that why? Nishinoya added on, staring at Kageyama from the side intensely. After a moment of trying to internally calm down, Kageyama kept his face lowered and nodded slowly. Nishinoya felt his heart skip a beat, as a smile spread across his face. Kageyama, will you look at me? Kageyama was way too embarrassed to look over at Nishinoya right now. His face was already warm, and if he looked the other in the way, it'd only get worse. Please Kageyama, just look at me. He pleaded. Kageyama bit the inside of his mouth, trying to calm down, before turning around and looking at the other's face. He was right though, his face was getting warming just looking at Nishinoya. However, within not even 2 seconds, Nishinoya went up on his knees, holding both sides of Kageyama's face firmly, before pressing his lips against Kageyama's, causing his eyes to widen. Eye shock as more blood rushed to his face, but soon after, Kageyama complied and began kissing back, as he wrapped his arms around the other's torso, kissing him back deeply. Nishinoya then leaned all his weight against Kageyama, and into the kiss, taking the other by surprise, causing him to fall on his back. While Nishinoya lied on top of him, parting their lips, panting as the libero laid his head against Kageyama's chest. Your heart's going berserk. He let out a laugh through pants. Shut up. Kageyama mumbles, embarrassed. I don't know if you got the message or not, but I'll make it clear anyway. Nishinoya told the other, pushing himself up on Kageyama's chest, looking into his blue eyes. I've liked you for a long time now, I just never wanted to believe it. But no. I know, and I want you to be mine, Kageyama. He said, averting his eyes away for a moment, feeling his cheeks heat up, before looking back into Kageyama's. So, will you be mine? Kageyama just stared at Nishinoya in shock for what seemed like forever, even though it was about 3 seconds, until he suddenly wrapped his arms around Nishinoya, pulling him down gently against his chest once again. I will. Warning: this fanfiction does not belong to me, neither does the fan art. Credits to the original artist and author to the fan art and the fanfiction. Haiku does not belong to me either. Well, bye children, smiling face with hearts.